Yes, the United Nations. It's unfortunately I didn't get a chance to go to this conference. I would have loved to. It took place in Nairobi, Kenya, just last week, actually, early to mid-March. And it was actually a really big deal. I literally didn't see a single word about it in the American media, not one word. But they came up with some really drastic agreements and declarations and resolutions. And they're using language now that, if we had used this language a couple of years ago to say this is what they're doing, the establishment media would have said, oh, you guys are conspiracy theorists, you're kooks, you're just making stuff up. And here, if you actually read the things that they're saying, they're calling for, quote, a new world order. This is the head of the UN Environment Agency calling for what she described as a new world order. And then you had another one of these senior bureaucrats, and you had heads of state there. You had Emmanuel Macron, the unpopular, politically toxic president of France, was there. They said they're building this new world order to transform the way we live. And so, under the guise of saving us from humans, under the guise of saving us from allegedly man-made global warming, they want to completely restructure our lives, completely restructure our civilizations, take a bunch of our money and restrict our freedoms in unprecedented ways. So it's really dangerous territory. And what's even more dangerous is that nobody in America even knows this is happening, Sheila.
Yeah, I mean, I was last week on my show, I had somebody who was at another United Nations conference. This time it was the Commission on the Status of Women, and she was one of the few pro-lifers inside the conference. I don't know how they allowed her to be inside there. And when I was talking to her, much the same sort of rhetoric was coming out of the meetings, that we need to transform how we live. We need to change what a family looks like. And for me, it just seemed so counterintuitive to their self-proclaimed goals. If you want women's advancement and if you want children to be better off, well, the best place for women and children is in the patriarchy, whether the feminists like it or not. It is the safest place for women, and it is the best place where children thrive. But you see this rhetoric from the United Nations where you have to break down the family, you have to break down capitalism, and you have to put the United Nations or a global government at the top. And specifically with that Commission on the Status of Women, I mean, it basically wanted women to have the government as their sugar daddy, I guess, and sell it to them as women's empowerment.
It really is the theater of the absurd, Sheila, because on the one hand, you have exactly what you described. You have a bunch of radical ideologues, feminists, haters of the family, haters of all things patriarchy, can't have nuclear family because that's oppressive to women. And oh my goodness, they might have to cook a meal sometimes, and heaven forbid. And so you have, on the one hand, these people. And then on the other hand, you have the United Nations appointing delegates from, for example, the Iranian regime or the Saudi Arabian regime to these commissions on the status of women and women's rights and things like this. It is completely ludicrous, but the contrast is amazing. It seems like everyone is welcome under this UN globalist tent, whether they be, Islamist fundamentalists who think women are property and should be beaten if they don't obey their husbands and things like that, or whether it's these women who want to completely destroy the family and have the government take care of children. What's not welcome is the traditional Christian Western civilization perspective where you have, a nuclear family with a mom and a dad and children transmitting the values to the next generation. That's the only alternative that it seems is not welcome under the UN's vision. So you have a very dangerous situation right now where they are literally undermining the family, undermining marriage, undermining free markets, undermining nation states, all of these things that are kind of the building blocks of civilization. And I think the reason is very clear. I mean, these are the exact same things that Karl Marx targeted, if you think about it. He wanted to abolish private property. He wanted all the children to be raised by government and government schools. He thought women ought to be kind of seen communally, right? The communal wives where everybody gets to, do things. And so this is the same kind of ideology that the UN is pushing. And it has now infested Western governments, the United Nations, all these different UN agencies. And it's a very dangerous situation. And I think it goes hand in glove with the whole climate and environmental thing. What you have here is a concerted effort to break down freedom, break down traditional values, traditional morality, and replace it with this new UN vision, which is extremely dangerous if you love liberty and you love your country.
That's an excerpt from my weekly show, The Gunn Show. It airs every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Each week, I bring you an informal interview with an interesting newsmaker or citizen activist you might not have heard of, but who is making a big difference in Canadian politics. And we'll talk about issues in a way you'll never see done in the mainstream media. To subscribe, go to therebel.media/shows.